Hi there, I'm Morgan Hines. I'm a senior reporter with PhocusWire, and I'm here in the PhocusWire studio in Barcelona at Phocuswright Europe. I'm joined by Carlos Cendra, partner and chief marketing officer at Mabrian Technologies. Thanks for being here.
Thanks to you, Morgan.
Really excited to meet you. How are you doing today?
All fine. Thank you very much for having us.
Of course. I'd love to talk a little bit about sustainable travel management. Let's dive right into that. In regard to sustainable destination management and fighting against over-tourism, what should destinations be measuring?
Well, as you know, we are a data company specialized in big data analytics for destinations mainly in the travel sector. And we launched it like 2 years ago already, a set of indicators in order to measure tourism sustainability for destination managers.
Okay.
And so what we propose is by using global sources, more than 30 global sources, start measuring some kind of KPIs in order to understanding where we are standing as a destination and try to track the evolution, right? And to do that, we develop indicators in 4 different dimensions: in the economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and also structural sustainability.
Okay, so that's quite a lot of factors to measure, it sounds like. Why is measuring so important as you look to a more sustainable travel future?
Well, basically, sustainability, all we know is too holistic, right? So it's kind of difficult measuring something that big. So what we propose is start making small pieces of different ways to measure different aspects. That's why we split that in 4 different sections in order to approach specifically at each dimension, right? And obviously, this is not a holistic, a complete way of measuring. It's just a starting point. But what we found out at that time is the most of the destinations didn't know where to start.
Right.
Okay, we got the SDGs from UN nations, etc., but this is too general normally, right? So by, for example, analyzing the impact of the incomes of the tourists at destinations and how this sticks in the local economies, we can start measuring if the tourism it's bringing wealth or not to the residents, which is something pretty important.
That's really interesting. So with all that in mind, I know that last month Mabrian published a white paper with Phocuswright on how to move away from over-tourism. If you were to choose one of the indicators mentioned in that report to kind of kickstart a sustainable approach to over-tourism, what would you recommend?
Well, all of them are related, to be sincere, but I would go for the density, right?
Okay.
Since this is now an embracing challenge or problem again, especially here in the Mediterranean destinations. I mean, the exceed of human pressure in some parts of the year, in some places, right? It's not all the year long normally. It's more about seasonality. But I would go for the measurement of the density of the tourism activity, which is something that we do, basically measuring all the accommodation offering at destination, both hotels and holiday rentals, and the visitors' activity on the map, right? So we can know where are the more stressed areas, and we can help the destination managers to do something related to that and try to avoid that pressure, because this is affecting both the visitor but also the residents.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So when you think about density and over-tourism, this seems to be something of a topic du jour, but there's a lot of commentary out there and thoughts and thought leadership, but it's proving a little bit hard to solve this kind of problem. So is there something that you think could be kind of a silver bullet solution or approach to managing this? Or is it something that's a little bit more difficult to solve?
It is pretty difficult, and every destination has a different reality, right? We can see examples of destinations, for example, having, a lot of cruise ships, for example, and others, and other realities. But one thing that could be standard for every single destination that must face with this problem is listen to the resident and make the resident part of the business and the tourism development, which sounds kind of simple, but almost no destination in the world is doing that. Residents are part of the destination, so you cannot manage or even promote the destination without counting on the people living at destination. Because if not, happens what is happening now in several destinations, that they feel apart. They feel like they're not getting anything from tourism, but inconvenience, and which is not true. But sometimes communication from the DMOs as well is not really appropriate, or they basically don't communicate that much internally to the residents about the opportunities and wealth that the tourism is bringing.
Got it. So really the first step to an approach to fight over tourism is to involve the residents. Okay.
I would say that, yeah.
That's great to know. And also in the white paper, you mentioned not only performance indicators, but ratios that offer innovative approaches to issues like the carbon footprint. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, because we always say that destination sustainability is a matter of balance. In those factors I was mentioning, and there is also one factor really important to keep in mind, which is not normally taken into account, which is the profitability of the sector. We always say that we need to maintain that balance with profitability, because if the private sector is the tourism, we need the private sector, and private sector is about to make money as they own business. And so things like combining indicators like the carbon footprint and the incomes that is generating in average a visitor is helping us to define and to identify basically more efficient targets, right? What we do is this CO2 incomes ratio is basically calculating how much dollars are this visitor in average spending during his stay, comparing to the total CO2 kilograms generated to the atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
So it's about looking for the balance, since if we don't do that and we only consider the CO2, we could go for just avoiding the long haul trips, right? Which is senseless in terms of tourism. In fact, it could be exactly the opposite. I mean, the needed for destinations, because normally the long haul trips, it's true that generates more CO2 because of the trip, the flight, but they normally stay longer, they normally spend more, so they are bringing more wealth to the residents. And so probably in average, and when you see the whole, is more sustainable this kind of trips than let's say the short trips, the weekend short trips inside Europe, for example.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like this is something that you really need to take a multifaceted approach with, and it sounds like data is really integral to that. So that's really interesting. So when you think about this, obviously all these destinations have different features and characteristics. So is it a one-size-fits-all approach? And with that in mind, is it better to have kind of a global approach to solving this, or is it better to approach this destination by destination?
Well, again, every destination it's a single story, but even though we consider that there are some indicators that can be standardized, right? And that's why we work towards having global sources in order to provide those indicators. So we can apply same metrics, same KPIs to Barcelona, but to New York, to Sao Paulo, or wherever in the world. And that's, again, the starting point to measure, even though every single of those cities I just mentioned has different challenges. And from there, the idea was just taking strategic steps in let's say, in a long term. But what we consider is it's a mix of both, which is really needed, because we need to start doing steps.
Right.
I mean, we need to start measuring. We know it's so difficult, and we saw several destinations stuck in trying to develop their own data lake, their own system to measure sustainability with their own data. And it's so hard to gather all the data and to integrate and use it to create real indicators and updated indicators as well. So it's about move strategically and try to make your system work, but in the meantime, use tools, existing tools, in order to start measuring and start making steps, and then tracking the evolution when making that decisions to change things.
Got it. Well, it sounds like Mabrian is going to be integral in the start of this solution.
That's what we try, just to help to do the first step, step forward.
That's great to know. Is there anything else you'd like to add? We're a little bit short on time.
Well, I mean, regarding all the indicators we have developed so far, I think it's worth it to mention that we don't point that much or especially in the environmental measurement, which is really important. I mean, it's a must, obviously, and we measure the carbon footprint and all that, but we need to consider other type of indicators, like what we call the structural or the perception indicators. And for example, one of the most important indicators we use today with destinations regarding sustainability is analyzing how the visitors are perceiving the destination in terms of sustainability. So what does that mean? That means that we measure if the communication of the destination is really getting to the visitor in terms of letting them know the efforts the destination and the industry at destination is doing towards sustainability. And this is really important because nowadays it's a crucial matter for the demand, basically, and increasingly, right? So that's something important, for example. And another type of indicators that we calculate and we consider important is what we call the structural sustainability indicators. Structural because it goes to the inherent structure of the tourism, and we calculate and try to help destinations to avoid the high dependence on a few markets. For example, when a destination depends on just a few markets, that's not really balanced and not sustainable in a short and mid-term. Same with products. We help them to understand that if you are depending on just a few tourism products, that will get you into a dependence on a few markets, probably. And then also to the third factor, which is really important as well, which is the seasonality.
Right. Okay.
Which is something really important also in the Mediterranean area.
So all about balance, like you said.
Yes.
Well, this has been really educational. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.